nice to meet you. And I'm in a different part of my house because I wanted this to be a different type of video, like a vlogging style. So I didn't want to be like in my YouTube setup where I'm doing reactions and things like that, because I wanted it to be like, you know, like a real like conversation, like you and me kind of thing. And you're here because you saw the title. I had a hysterectomy at 32, which as of today, right now in this exact moment, I have not had it yet. It is still a few days out. Today is Monday and my surgery is Thursday. So I wanted to do like a little vlogging situation explaining how I got here to be getting a hysterectomy at 32 and all of the steps that it took and exactly why I decided that this is the decision that I arrived to. And there have been a lot of people that have asked me, like, why are you doing this exactly? You're so young. Are you sure? Like, this is going to be it. Like, this is for sure gonna do it, and all of that. And all of it is a resounding yes. And here is that story. So to begin, my cycle started when I was 9 years old. So I have had this bitch in my life for damn near all of it, really. And I don't exactly remember what my cycles were like as a kid, but I remember them always being pretty painful. Now, would I say that they're more painful now than they were back then? I honestly don't know, but they're pretty bad now. So, and I'm here right now, like in the now and the today of things, right? So, it is constantly been a presence in my life. It is constantly have been terrible cramps. I got on birth control probably at about 17, 18. I can't actually remember. I had to tend to my cats, cats plural. Where was I? Birth control. Okay, so I got on birth control about 17, 18, something like that. So that really definitely did take care a lot of the pain that I was having with my cycles, to where it was probably more of like a manageable. It was probably more like where it was supposed to be pain-wise. Maybe they still were not great by any means, but it wasn't what it was previously. However, being on birth control destroyed my system. I was nauseous every day of my life up until I got off of it the first time, which was 23, I think. So from 17 years to 23 years old, I had incredible nausea. I mean, sick to my stomach, to the point to where I went to doctor's appointments. I had one of those scopy things go down your throat to look into your stomach to see what was going on. Like, was there ulcers? What's happening? I was just always so sick, and I never knew why until I went to a different doctor, because I, switched doctors. And she put me on a different birth control. She was like, oh, I don't think this is the right dosage for you. Let's try this. And then it was all right. It was manageable. I wasn't sick every day the way that I used to be. My cycles were still, and my acne. I didn't really have acne like that. So I thought I was just like super lucky or whatever, that I just wasn't one of the girls that really got acne really bad in her teenage years. Turns out it was just because I was on birth control. Because as soon as I got off that thing, let me tell you something. But so when I got on the new birth control, I stayed on that for maybe like a year or two or something like that. I don't quite remember, but then I got off because at that point, me and my husband were like, okay, we're gonna start trying to grow our family. So at this point, I got married in 2013. And I want to say we started like officially trying about 2014-ish. Mind you, I would have been a high-risk pregnancy, and I knew that because I may or may not have lupus. And what does that mean? That means that I have the blood work for it, I have the blood markers for it, but I don't have the ailments for it, right? So it's entirely possible that maybe I'm a carrier, and or it just hasn't like full-blown come out in me, in which case I do go see a rheumatoid arthritis / lupus doctor every 6 months, and I have since high school. I'm on Plaquenil, or hydrochloroquine, the doctor name for it, whatever. And because of that, I would be a high-risk pregnancy. So when I talked to that doctor about it, he was like, yeah, you're gonna wanna go to the hospital and like tell them your situation before you get started so they can like guide you and let you know what's gonna happen. So I ended up having to get off one of the other medications that I was on, which I can't even remember what it was, to be honest. But they were like, you cannot be on this medication if you're trying to get pregnant. So boom, I got off of that, and I actually never got back on it. And from there, they were like, yeah, go ahead and start trying. About 6 months to a year. When you get pregnant, come back. They were like, you're young. At this point, I was 24. And so they were like, yeah, about 6 months, come back in if you haven't gotten pregnant by then, but you know, up to a year. And then after that, then if you're not pregnant by then, which probably won't happen, then we'll start looking into things. Cause I mean, I was curious. I was like, well, what happens if I don't get pregnant in a certain time frame? I don't know, it's like I knew something or whatever. Anyway, 6 months go by, nothing. So we're like, okay, well, you know, turns out it's not as easy to get pregnant as they would suggest that it was in school. Like the moment you lay down and have sex, you're gonna get pregnant. Wasn't the case for me. For some of y'all it was. It was not for me though. So 6 months go by, nothing. Excuse me. It's not like I'm trying to tell an important story or anything. So then I go back to the doctor, and they were like, okay, yeah, it's a little strange, but don't panic. Just, you know, we're gonna let an entire year go by, and if that happens, then come back and we'll start looking into things. Okay, boom. A full year goes by. Mind you, during that full year, I took so many pregnancy tests for no real reason, really, because it's okay. No. Nope. Because I never missed a cycle. I was never late. If I was late, it would probably like a day or two at most. It wasn't like, oh, I might actually be like, no. So it was just me taking pregnancy tests and immediately getting disappointed because it would say no. And I cannot tell you how many no pregnancy tests I have taken over the years. Getting ahead of myself though. I ended up going back to the doctor after a full year of not getting pregnant passed, and they said, okay, let's go ahead and start running some tests. So I did all kinds of blood work, all kinds of urine work, they went in and did this horrible. Let me let my cat finish eating real quick. They will not let me be great. They really won't. Okay, he's done. Where was I? Oh yeah, they ran all these tests, and there was these one particularly painful ones where they would put like a balloon, I guess, in your uterus and blow it up so they can take like a look around and see what's going on in there. I've never experienced pain like that in my life. I cried, I screamed, it hurt so fucking bad that I think I like threw up a little bit, and the nurses were like, okay, honey, you need to calm down, you need to breathe, you need to just, and I was like, this is different. You see, this is why I record in a room typically, because they they be out here doing everything. So I did that. I considered doing not IVF, because IVF was never in the financial ability area, right? Neither was surrogacy, and neither was adoption. So all of these are immediately off the table. But they were talking about when it's like, is it not artificial insemination, but like when they put the semen in you to try to get it to the egg, just in case. Yes, my husband was tested just to make sure that his swimmers were fine, and it was something going on with me. And so they were like, okay, in order to do that, you need to take this pill, because for some reason the tests are showing that your eggs just aren't maturing. Or like the follicles, there's like some follicle situation. They either weren't there, they just weren't maturing. Something was going on in the very beginning of the process that was just knocking everything off the map, and it just wasn't going to happen. So they were like, take this pill and it should help you at least get a few viable like stems or eggs or whatever the hell it was. I really don't remember. So I had to do that for like 2 weeks or something like that. And there was like a series of pills that I had to do. And at that point, I had switched jobs, or in the process of switching jobs. Many tears, many sleepless nights, many vague days, specifically avoiding going down the baby aisles at any stores, because it was a trigger. It definitely was. And of course, doing all of this process, in the background, you have so many friends and family that are getting pregnant, and they're like doing their pregnancy announcements on social media and inviting you to baby showers and sex reveals and stuff. And like, and it's an interesting time, because all of that is happening whilst you're going through this in the background. And I didn't talk about it with anybody. The only people that like really knew what I was going through, like for real knew, was my mom and my husband. Everybody else, like, I don't know if they knew or what. I just didn't talk about it, because what am I gonna say? And more so than that, what are you going to say? And I just didn't want anyone to say anything, because there's nothing that I didn't want to hear. Oh, it'll happen when it's supposed to, or it's all in God's plan. Or like it just wasn't meant to be and your path was something else. I didn't want to hear any of that, because one, all being in God's plan, it just made it sound like your God is very cruel, you know, and I don't like that for him, right? I'm not a Christian, so that's why it really didn't connect. But you know, I respect everything, I respect everybody, and I know nobody would say that out of malice, but it just seems mean to me, because it's like I'm literally suffering over here. I'm going through like a very traumatic experience and PTSD essentially from these negative pregnancy tests, and like, my God, there's so many. And the algorithm, this is the algorithm, right? Because the moment you're doing anything, so I'm buying pregnancy tests, I'm going to the doctors, and I'm researching all this baby stuff, because I'm like trying to nest and like be a mom, and like picking up little onesies and stuff along the way, so like financially it would be a bit easier. So when I do get pregnant and the baby gets here, I have some stuff, right? So that means that the YouTube commercials are all suddenly going to be tailored to like baby things. So when it's not happening for you and you're being inundated by all of this baby things, further degrades the mental. So, right, I did the pill. Sorry, I forgot I was on that. So I took the pill and it worked. So I go to my doctor appointment and she's doing the ultrasound and she's like, oh shit. And I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Did it not work? But she's like, oh, it worked. It worked, honey. It worked too much. If you get pregnant right now, if we do this procedure for you, there's a solid chance that you're gonna have multiples, right? And I was like, that's great. I really want twins. And she was like, no, babes, no baby. No, quads or more. And ethically, we can't do that. One, you're a high risk pregnancy. So that's one. quads or more is hard on anybody that's not already a high-risk pregnancy. That's 2. And 3, you're only this big. Okay. You're only this big. There's not enough of you to sustain quads or more. So this is over. That's canceled. I highly advise you when you go home to not have sex, okay? Because if you get pregnant, this is the possibility on the other side of that. And so obviously I heeded her advice, because what do I look like with multiples? Okay, I really wanted twins, not quads or more. So that happened. And at that point, it's about 2016, 2017, I think. Mind you, in 2015, we bought a house. We bought our first house, and that house was specifically so that we could start a family. So we had our master bedroom over here, and across the hall would have been the baby's room, right? So all of this is happening while we're in that house that was supposed to be our family home, and the baby's room was supposed to be right across from ours. So every day I would wake up and I would leave the room and I would see the room across from it, and it's empty. There's nothing in there because it was supposed to be a baby's room. So eventually we ended up turning it into a guest room and putting a spare bed in there. But of course, in my mind, I know what that room was supposed to be. I know what it was meant for. So like, again, mental just degrading over the years. And again, I'm not talking to anybody about it, because what are you supposed to say to me? None of that is going to make this right. So at that point is when I got heavy into Shiny. And they just really, as a group, musically kept it together for me. So every negative pregnancy test that I would take, and I would come home and I would just be so down and out, distraught, my husband would put Shiny on in the background of like either like their music videos or like a song or whatever. Sometimes he would bring me home flowers, and he even learned how to write 사랑해 in Korean. And on our little dry board, he would write that for me and stuff, because he just knew that at this point I'm just like a shell of a person. But not only that, but every negative pregnancy test that would come with an excruciating period. So it wasn't just that, oh, my cycle came, so I'm obviously not pregnant. It was an excruciating cycle. So much to the point that sometimes I would even vomit. Like, I am decommissioned. I cannot do things that day because it is so bad. And it would give me like nausea, stomach aches. Sometimes I was starting to get headaches. It wasn't the migraines that I get now, but it was like in the beginning phases. So it was just all bad. And I would be so sad to the point that when I knew my cycle was coming, like I could feel it, I would like clench, like I would hold it as if you can like hold the blood in from coming. Because I just didn't want it to be that. Like, I wanted to be pregnant so bad. But that's not how it works. You can't do that. You cannot hold your cycle in because you would rather be pregnant instead. So it was bad, you guys. It was really bad several years there. And then in 2017, Shiny's Kim Jong-hyun passed away. And that just like really threw me for a loop, because it's like I held on to this group as like a lifeline, because I can't talk to anybody, nobody can say anything, and I didn't ask anybody to say anything. Like, I didn't want any words of wisdom or encouragement, because it just was what it was, and nothing is going to make that okay. Nothing's going to make that better. So I didn't put that on anybody. So I really relied on the music, specifically Shiny, because it made me happy, it made me feel good. So then when he passed away, I was like, it hurt me so much to know that the person that could make this much of a difference in my life was hurting so much that they decided to leave. And there was nothing that anybody could do to help him. So it was just like, wow, he could never know what he did for me, all the while he was hurting this much in the background too. It's wild to me. It was so wild to me. So at this point, it's 2017 going into 2018, because he died in December 2017. So that was just a bad fucking year. It was not good. At that point, we had ran out of money to continue trying to do any kind of fertility treatments, any of it. So at that point, it was just like a solid, like, give up and we're done. It was about that time that we started having some family members ask, like, when are you gonna have babies? Like, what are you guys doing over there? You're wasting time. So then at that point, I got to tell them, oh, yeah, I can't have children. We tried. I'm infertile. And that's kind of how the conversation goes. Like, you say that, and then they're like in the stunned silence, and then you're just kind of looking, and they're looking, because nobody knows what to say. And so that's why you don't say things like that. When are you going to start having children? Or what are you doing? You're wasting time. You're getting older. Time's a ticking, because you don't know what's going on in the background. Right? Okay. So there was that. And then I didn't have it happen too much, only just very, very occasionally. For the most part, friends and family didn't ask. They just saw, like, oh, you guys don't have kids yet, and that's that on that. So I was really, really lucky on that aspect. But those one occasions, it was just kind of like, yeah, that's why you don't ask these kinds of questions. So at that point, it's 2018. And that's when I went to Korea with my soul sisters. And that trip essentially was like the letting go of everything. Because we sold that house. Let me back up. We sold that house to get into this house. Right? So we specifically sold that house for a couple of reasons. One, it was just kind of, the builders, they didn't like do like an amazing-ish job. So like, it was like where the windows are, like almost every window in the house, like there would be cracks, like fissures on the edges of it, because it was starting to like split, and the neighborhood was kind of going down, and it just wasn't viable anymore. But most importantly, it was supposed to be our family home. So obviously just being in the house was just degrading my mental health. So we were like, okay, let's just pack all of this up and let's go find something else. So it really felt like the moment we got out of that house, there was like a giant weight that got lifted off of my shoulders, right? And we moved into an apartment for a little bit of time while this house was being built. So we were over there for a couple months, I think. So while we were in that apartment is when I went to Seoul. And the trip to Seoul was so significant because I really wanted to go to Korea because, you know, I was really into K-pop and I was learning about Korean culture and all of that. And I connected with some of my other Black K-pop friends that were also interested in the same things that I was. And so we all said, hey, let's go to Korea together, right? Let's, having never met each other face to face, get on a plane and find each other on the other side of the world. It's literally how it went. And it turned out amazing. Like, those are my babies. I love them so much. So we did that, and the Seoul trip was significant to me because it was like, it was fulfilling like a dream of being able to go to Korea, getting to experience the culture, learn a bit more about the language. I got to see Shiny live at a concert, so that was like that was a really special moment. And it was like getting to say thank you and goodbye to Jonghyun, kind of in a way, because we got to go to the, was it like the SM Coex Mall, and you see like their little handprints and stuff. And so like got to do the thing. And tidbit, my hand is bigger than everybody's in shinies except for Minho. Me and Minho have the same size hand. Everybody else was like, but yeah, so it was just kind of like it was like a wrap up of me of like letting go of what's not going to be and embracing what is. And what is I have the opportunity to be able to travel, use that money for fun things, frivolous things, other things that are no longer going to be going towards children, right? So it was kind of like leaving that and stepping into this kind of moment. And it was just a girls' trip, so my husband wasn't there that time, but you know, next time. And when I got back from that, so at this point, it's like 2019 or whatever, I'm still having wretched cycles, like wretched cycles, but it's not exactly tied to like hoping that I get pregnant. Mind you, that hope never went away. And that's the other part of it, is every time, you know, we would do something, it would be like, is this gonna be the time? Is it finally gonna happen for me? Because the hope never did go away. And that's like, that's the part that I would be mad about the most, because up until not this day, like today, but like up until like a few weeks ago, I would always think like, maybe this is gonna be the time, like maybe it's gonna happen. Cause you know, they always say, oh, when you're least thinking about it, when you're like completely like not even thinking about it is when it happens. But there was never like a time that I'm not thinking about it, right? But now, skip to 2020 when I turned 30. Yes, I turned 30, dead middle of the panini. Sucked. I get migraines now with my cycles. So not only do I still have these really painful cycles. Oh, I missed a part. Let's back up. When I got back on birth control the second time, so this is somewhere between 2018, 2019, maybe. Somewhere between 2017 and 2019, okay? I go back to the gyno, I have these cysts. Right, and they were like, the way to get rid of these cysts is either we do surgery or you get back on birth control. Like getting back on birth control is going to be the most cost-effective way, and it's going to work, right? I didn't want to get back on birth control at that point, because if I do that, I'm definitely not getting pregnant, right? Not that I apparently was in any danger of doing that anyway, but like I for sure wasn't going to be getting pregnant if I'm on birth control. And she was like, well, them's the breaks. You're going to want to shrink these cysts, because that can interfere with pregnancy too. So I do that, my system freaks out again, the cysts shrink, I get back off of it, and now my body is pissed because what are you doing? All of these hormones, you're giving them to me, you're getting off of them, and I'm just all out of whack. Boom, right, okay, next. Now we're back in 2020, when I'm 30, and I'm having these horrible cycles that now come with migraines, which I never had migraines before. I used to have pretty consistent headaches, which is a completely different topic, but I wasn't having migraines. Now I'm having migraines with these cycles. And when that happens, it makes me nauseous, so now I'm vomiting. So now just my entire day is shot. Here's why this is important. I'm a massage therapist. And at that point, I was working for a franchise. That doesn't like really care when you're on your period, right? Like if you're sick, then obviously don't come in, because if you're working over people when you're sick, you're gonna get them sick. Which is also vice versa. If you're sick, do not go get a massage. If you are sick, do not go get a massage, because then you get your therapist sick and your therapist cannot work, and that is our livelihood. That's 1. 2, if you get sick and you get a massage, that's gonna make you feel even worse, because massage is a blood flow situation. So whatever's going on inside you, we're just gonna push that all the way around. You're gonna feel like hell. You've been warned, that's 2. So I have these dilapidating. I cannot function when this happens for my cycle, right? Like that whole day is shot. That means that I'm not getting in the car and driving to an appointment and fulfilling a full schedule, right? What is something that people never want to hear is your massage has been canceled because your massage therapist got her period today. Oh, right? Nobody wants to hear that because menstrual cycles are not taken that seriously to this day and age. Now we have research showing that some people's menstrual cycles are so bad that it's on the same pain scale of a heart attack. We have that now. But a couple years ago, when I was, working for these franchises, we didn't exactly have that. Nobody cared, right? So your boss isn't necessarily going to be like, oh, your bloody time came. Auntie Rose showed up, knocked on your door. Get to work, right? So luckily, it would often happen, and I thank my ancestors for it because they didn't put me through it. But when my cycle would come, I would usually have an empty schedule that day, or like maybe one person or something, so I didn't have to like try to suffer through it. The other part of that is, since getting off birth control, my cycle became unpredictable. So it would always come, and she's going to come. It's just a matter of when. I cannot pinpoint the day. When you can pinpoint the day, you can know that, okay, I'm coming on my cycle this day. I need to get off and like block this day off because I'm gonna be down. I couldn't do that. It was like sometime this week or the following week, she's going to come. She will be here. Oh, she's coming. But I just don't know what day. Right, so that's why that. So that is still an issue to this day because now my cycles are even worse, right? And they're still just as unpredictable on what day they're going to come. I do have a period app. I do use a period tracker, and it tells me somewhere around this day, girl, it's probably gonna come. And it's never actually that day, ever. It's usually a few days before, a few days after. Sometimes she'll show up like an entire week before she was scheduled to. There's no, like, I can't predict it enough to be able to set my own schedule aside because like I own my own business now. So I don't have to ask nobody, I don't have to go through nobody or whatever. I would just have to let my clients know like, hey, on this day, she may or may not come. So I'm just gonna block this day off. It's unavailable. Or if you try to block on this day, I'll call you. Hey, is it okay if we move your session to this day instead? Because, I have to do that for myself. Well, that started giving me a lot of anxiety, right? To where I'm like, when is my cycle gonna come? Because I'm going to be under the weather that day. I'm not gonna be able to work that day, and I don't know when it's coming. I'm not gonna be able to work that day. I'm mortified if someone's gonna schedule with me that day, and then I'm gonna have to try to move everything around. People are gonna be mad because, again, nobody wants to hear that they're not getting their massage because your period came. So it was getting in the way of things. Like my quality of life was going down. For my birthday, we went to go see the Gorillas in concert, and it was an amazing time. But I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, okay, it's at this day, and I feel like my cycle might show up around this day, and I'm just praying and hoping to God that it's not going to be that day so I don't have to miss the concert because I can't get out of bed because my cycles are so bad. So all of these things, all of it over the years of trauma, of infertility, negative pregnancy tests, incredibly painful test procedures to figure out why I'm not getting pregnant, incredibly painful menstrual cycles coupled with migraines and vomiting, an inability to get out of bed, being in so much pain that I'm stooped over like an old woman. I even have like this leg cramp thing that would happen where my leg is like on fire. You would think like a nerve is being pinched or something. Like it's all bad, right? So all of that. And I went to the doctor for all of these things. continuously throughout the year. So there was like a track record of this, as well as, you know, a couple of other things that I won't get into. But also, my uterus is, what do they call, like retroflexed? So like it sits backwards. And I think because of that, sometimes it makes intercourse like uncomfortable, because it's like pressure being pushed on my uterus because it's not sitting in the way that it's supposed to, right? So there would be some positions that are just like uncomfortable, and then like my cervix is also right there because it sits kind of low. So like he would just like beat the hell out of my cervix sometimes too, and it was just like, she's got to go. She's got to go. There are just so many damning, incriminating, criminal offenses that she has committed. She's got to get out of here. You've got to go. I can't even have sex in peace because you're there in the way. You got to go. So, all of these things over the years I've shared with my doctor. I originally wanted to go in and get a hysterectomy at 2018. And my doctors wouldn't let me. They would talk me out of it. They were like, no, you're still kind of young. At this point, I'm 28, right? And they're like, you're still kind of young. You still don't know. Like, just hold off. Just be cool. Oh, and the other part of it, if I did get pregnant with the high risk pregnancy with the lupus thing, remember I was telling you about that a while ago with the lupus? They were saying that my blood markers, my blood cells, whatever, could go into the baby, which obviously it would, but it can go into the baby's heart, giving them a hard time, meaning in the first few years of their life, they would need a pacemaker. Pregnancy just was not viable. So at that point, it started becoming of like it's really hard for you to get pregnant. When you do get pregnant, if you do get pregnant, it's probably gonna be really hard on you, and then also really hard on the baby. It just started becoming like, maybe don't pass that on, that complicated. A baby with a pacemaker, can you imagine? It's just, if you can avoid that, you should avoid that, right? And so then it started becoming like a tug of war of like, don't get pregnant, don't do that, don't pass on that gene. Let that gene die with you, because nobody else in my family has it except for my uncle on my dad's side, and he doesn't have children either. So it's like, we could maybe like stomp that out. And so clearly that's what's going to happen now. So all of that accumulated to this moment. So finally, at the beginning of the month, I went to another gyno visit, and I was like, I keep coming here about the same thing. Is it possible that I can just get a hysterectomy? And for the first time over all of these years, my doctor said, yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk to the surgeon about it. You're gonna have to do like some consultation stuff. I mean, yeah, I think we can do that for you, because you've been coming into this clinic for years now complaining about the same things. And and the main complaint was yeast infections. I get yeast infections like if the wind blows from the north instead of the south, I will get a yeast infection. Like, it is horror. It is wretched. Like, I know a lot of women, like maybe they'll get them like once in their lifetime or something. I get these motherfuckers like 4 or 5 times a year. Like, it is wretched. It is so like, so all of these things. And then she was like, yeah, and it's possible that it might help correct that issue, whatever's going on too. So I was like, say less, say less. You said getting a hysterectomy might help me, that I might not have yeast infections anymore? Bitch, are you serious? Because it's worth it based on that alone. But everything else, so like, yeah, so she was like, I'll do a partial hysterectomy for you, which means that they're going to take out the cervix, the uterus, and the tubes. They're going to leave my ovaries, because if I take out my ovaries, that's going to send me into early menopause, and then I'd have to go on hormone replacements and stuff and whatnot because my body isn't ready to do that yet, right? So she's going to leave the ovaries in there, but everything else is going to come out. Ideally, if I did have any kind of endometriosis situation going on, because like in their scoping stuff, they saw some, like, you know, they saw some sus things where they were like, that could also be it. That's probably going to take care of everything. So she's also going to do a laparoscopy, and that's when they make the incisions in your stomach, like here, here, and here, with a little camera, and they're gonna take a look around, because she's like, I'm gonna see if there's anything else I need to clean up while I'm in there. If everything's all good, we're just gonna snip through the vagina and pull her right on out. Naturally, that means that I decided to come on my cycle the other day. What was it, 2 days ago? Friday or Saturday that I came on, yeah, because this bitch isn't one to just leave without a proper farewell, I guess. So of course she brought a migraine with her. It was a very long day. That weekend sucked. But yeah, so here we are now, and I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to a much better quality of life on the other side of all of this. And this is, I guess this is just gonna be part one, obviously. I was hoping to make this all just like one big thing, but I guess it's just gonna have to be a multiple kind of thing, because we're not even there at the surgery yet. This is just the getting up there to that point. So if that is something that you are interested in, getting a hysterectomy before age appropriate, there are a lot of steps that you had to go through. This was several years in the making. This was several documentations. This was a lot to finally get the doctors on my side to fight for me, and insurance approved it. And I'm finally gonna be on my way. And on the other side of this, I am expecting to no longer have these debilitating cramps anymore. No more pop-up cycles. It's gonna be great. I'm going to be able to be having the best sex of my life, because there's not like a punching bag down there in the way, getting beat up. It's gonna be great. Yeah. So stay tuned for the next one. The next one will be me getting ready for the procedure and things like that. So see you later.